Welcome back to the deep dive. Usually when we talk about software updates, we're looking at, improved battery life, maybe a smarter spell check,
Yeah.
a new dark mode. But today we are talking about a market meltdown.
It is. It's very rare that a single software patch note causes billions of dollars to just, well, evaporate from the stock market in an afternoon, but that is exactly what we're looking at today.
Yeah, we're rewinding the clock just a few days to early February 2026, and the headlines are absolutely screaming. You've got these massive double-digit drops in stock prices for absolute titans of industry. Thomson Reuters, RELX, which, owns LexisNexis, Wolters Kluwer.
And these are stable, boring companies.
They are. They're the blue chips of the professional world. They don't usually crash like this.
Exactly. I mean, these aren't volatile crypto coins. These are the backbone of the legal and professional services industry. And they took a massive hit.
And the culprit behind all this red ink, it isn't a scandal. It's not accounting fraud. It's not a CEO stepping down. It's a plugin.
Specifically, a plugin from Anthropic.
So here's the setup for everyone listening. Anthropic, the company behind Claude, officially launched specialized plugins for their new agentic tool, which they're calling Cowork. And one of those plugins is designed specifically for legal work.
And that legal label, that's what triggered the panic, because for the last few years, the unspoken agreement in Silicon Valley was that the big AI labs, OpenAI, Google, Anthropic, they build the engine, they build the raw intelligence.
And then the specialized startups come in and build a car.
Right. You'd have a legal tech startup or a medical tech startup, and they would take that raw AI, wrap it in a nice interface, add some specialized rules, maybe some proprietary data, and then sell it to lawyers. That was the business model.
The big labs provided the electricity. The startups built the appliances.
But with this launch, Anthropic basically stood up and said, actually, we're going to build the appliance too, and we're going to give it away inside our app.
Which instantly pulls the rug out from under an entire industry.
It really does. But look, we aren't here just to stare at stock tickers. We want to understand why this specific piece of software is so scary to the incumbents.
That's the mission today. We're going to tear apart the actual technical documentation, the GitHub files that Anthropic released, to see how this thing works under the hood. Because when you actually read the specs, you realize this isn't just a chatbot that summarizes PDFs.
No. Not at all. It's simulating the thought process of a lawyer. It's actually quite unnerving how detailed it gets.
So we need to figure out, is this tool actually capable of doing the job? And if it is, are we looking at the extinction of the entry-level associate?
That is the multi-billion-dollar question.
Okay, let's start with the tool itself. We've been using Claude for years. We chat with it. We ask to write emails, maybe debug some code. How is this Cowork thing different from the chat box we're all used to?
It's a fundamental shift in architecture. So Anthropic released two tools recently. One is Claude Code, which is very technical. It runs in a terminal. It's for engineers. But Claude Cowork is the no-code version. It's the interface for the rest of us. And the key difference is one word: agentic.
Right. We hear agentics thrown around constantly in tech circles. But let's break that down. What does it practically mean for a user?
Well, think of the old chatbot model as a transaction. You ask a question, it gives an answer, and then it just freezes. It waits for you to tell it what to do next. It has no initiative.
It's a tool, like a calculator.
Exactly. It doesn't just wake up and decide to do math for you.
Right.
An agentic workflow is different. You give it a goal. You say, review this contract and get it ready for signature. The AI then breaks that goal down into steps. It plans. It says, okay, first I need to read it, then I need to check our rules, then I need to draft changes, then I need to write an email explaining them. And then, this is the kicker, it goes and does them.
Without you prompting it for every single step?
It iterates. It checks its own work. It acts like a teammate, hence the name Cowork.
And to make this teammate actually useful, they gave it these plugins.
11 of them right out of the gate. They released open source plugins for sales, finance, biology, marketing, essentially mapping out the entire corporate org chart. But the legal plugin is the one causing the earthquake.
I'm looking at the source list here for the out-of-the-box functionality, and it's surprisingly robust. It lists document review, risk flagging, NDA triage, and compliance tracking.
Which, if you ask any junior lawyer or paralegal, is basically 90% of their day. It's the high-volume, low-complexity work that, keeps the lights on in a lot of firms.
And that's why the investors panicked.
Yeah.
Because it eats all that volume work.
It's part of it. But the experts in our sources point out a strategic shift here. Anthropic is eyeing an IPO. To get a massive valuation, you need massive cash flow. You don't get that just by selling raw intelligence for pennies. You get it by solving expensive business problems.
So they're moving up to the application layer. They want to own the whole workflow, not just the brain.
Precisely. Why let a middleman sell legal tech to a Fortune 500 company when Anthropic can just sell Claude Enterprise and include the lawyer for free? It's a classic platform power move.
That makes sense from a business perspective.
Yeah.
But I want to get into the nitty-gritty. I'm a skeptic. Usually when general AI tries to do legal work, it's a disaster. It hallucinates cases, it misses nuance, it agrees to things it shouldn't.
That has been the history, yes. The hallucinating lawyer problem.
But we have the documentation from Anthropic's GitHub, which lays out something called the playbook concept. And reading this, it felt different. It felt structured.
It is fascinating because it mimics how a real legal department actually functions. I mean, if you hire a new human lawyer, you don't just hand them a contract and say, review this and walk away. You hand them the company handbook. You say, here are our rules.
Here's what we accept. Here's what we reject.
Exactly. The AI does the exact same thing. The first thing Cowork does isn't read the contract. The first thing it does is scan your local environment for a playbook file. It looks for your organization's standard positions.
But what if you're a small business? What if I don't have a legal playbook? I generally have a business plan.
That's the nugget I found really clever in the documentation. If no playbook exists, the AI doesn't just guess, it pauses. It offers to help you create one based on your industry. Or it says, I will proceed using widely accepted commercial standards, and it labels the review that way.
Whoa, that is a huge safety feature. It's explicitly telling you, I am using generic best practices, not your specific rules.
It creates transparency. It's not pretending to know your business if it doesn't.
Okay, so it has the rules. Now walk me through the actual review. The documentation lists a 5-step process that the agent follows. And the orders seem very specific.
Okay, the order is critical. Step 1. Identify the contract type. Is this a SaaS agreement? Is it professional services? A patent license?
Because a clause in a software deal means something totally different than the same clause in a consulting deal.
Context is king. Step 2 is even more important. Determine the user's side. Are you the vendor or the customer?
Oh, massive distinction. If I'm buying software, I want a warranty. If I'm selling it, I want to disclaim the warranty.
Exactly. The AI adjusts its entire risk analysis based on whose jersey it's wearing. But step 3 is where the agentic part really shines. Step 3 is read the entire contract before flagging a single issue.
Wait, why is that special? Don't all AI models read the text?
Not like this. A lot of older tools and even, human juniors go clause by clause. They see a bad indemnity clause on page 2 and they mark it up immediately. But legal clauses interact with each other. A bad indemnity clause might be totally harmless if there's a limitation of liability clause on page 10 that caps all damages at $50.
So the AI is holding the whole document in its head at once to check for consistency.
It understands the interplay. It's instructed to map the definitions and the cross-references before it starts redlining. That is surprisingly sophisticated. It prevents false alarms.
And then step 4 is the analysis against the playbook, and step 5 is a holistic check. Is the overall risk balanced?
It's a sanity check. Did I redline too much? Does this still look like a deal we can actually sign?
I want to zoom in on one specific example from the source material because it just blew my mind how granular this gets. The limitation of liability analysis. For those listening who aren't lawyers, this is usually the most fought-over paragraph in any contract. It decides how much money you owe if things go wrong.
It's the bread and butter of negotiation. It's where the rubber meets the road.
So what is the AI actually looking for here?
It's running a diagnostic checklist. First, the cap amount. Is it a fixed dollar number like $1 million? Or is it a multiple like 12 months of fees? Then it checks for mutuality. Does this cap apply to both of us, or did the other side try to sneak in a rule where my liability is unlimited but theirs is capped?
Classic lawyer move.
But then it goes hunting for what the documentation calls non-standard exclusions. I just call it sneaky drafting.
I love that. Give me an example of sneaky drafting.
Okay, so imagine a clause that says, liability is capped at the fees paid in the prior 3 months. Sounds fair, right? But what if you just started the deal? Or what if it's a low-cost pilot program? Your cap might effectively be 0. The AI is trained to do that math and flag it as a risk.
Wow. So it catches the gotchas.
It also looks for carve-outs. A carve-out is a list of things the cap doesn't apply to. If I say liability is capped except for breaches of Section X, and Section X covers 90% of the contract, Well, the cap is worthless. The AI maps those exceptions to see if the cap is actually doing its job.
That is something you usually have to train a second-year associate to spot after they've been burned a few times.
And that's the point. It's not just spell checking, it's applying cynical, experience-based logic.
But spotting the error is only half the job, right? You have to fix it. And you have to fix it without making the other side hate you. This brings us to the part of the documentation that I found most surprising. Redline generation best practices.
This section was wild. It reads like a guide on soft skills for humans. It wasn't just fix the text, it was how to negotiate effectively.
It's mimicking the behavior of a good lawyer. Let's run through the rules it follows. Rule number 1 was be specific.
Right. Don't just leave a comment in the margin saying, this is too broad. That's lazy. The AI provides the exact language ready to insert. It makes it easy for the other side to say yes.
Rule number 2, be balanced.
This is huge. The instructions explicitly say, don't be overly aggressive. It slows negotiations. The AI is optimized for getting the deal done, not just winning every theoretical point. That is a strategic decision Anthropic programmed right into the model.
That's incredible. It understands that being a jerk kills the deal.
Exactly.
And rule 3, explain rationale.
It generates a polite, professional reason for the change that you can copy-paste into an email. It saves you from having to write that awkward, sorry, legal made me do this note.
And rule 4, which might be my favorite, provide fallbacks.
This is where it gets really agentic. It identifies items as yellow, meaning important but not critical, and it prepares a plan B. So if the other side rejects your first edit, the AI essentially says to you, okay, they said no, here is a compromise position we can offer.
That is wild. It's strategizing 2 moves ahead.
It really is. It's playing chess while most tools are still playing checkers.
And it even checks the tone. The source said it adjusts based on the relationship.
Yes. If you tell the AI, this is a strategic partner we love, the red lines are gentle, maybe fewer comments. If you say, this is a vendor we don't trust, the red lines are strict and protective.
That is the human touch we always thought was safe. We always said AI can process data, but it can't understand the nuance of a relationship. Well, apparently it can, or at least it can simulate it well enough to pass.
So when you have a tool that reads the whole contract, finds the sneaky clauses, applies your specific playbook, negotiates with a balanced tone, and offers fallback positions, when you lay it out like that, the stock market crash starts to make a lot of sense.
It does. Let's look at those numbers again. Thomson Reuters dropped 16%. Wolters Kluwer down 10%. The London Stock Exchange Group fell 8.5%. Like you said, these are not crypto coins. These are the pillars of the industry.
The fear is palpable. And it's not just the big guys. The sources mention this term vibe coders.
Vibe coders, I saw that. What exactly does that mean?
It's a bit of a derogatory term for a certain type of startup.
Yeah.
Over the last 2 years, we saw hundreds of companies pop up that were basically just wrappers. They took GPT-4, put a nice legal AI logo on it, and charged lawyers $50 a month to use it. They were coding the vibe of a product, but the engine was just OpenAI or Anthropic.
And the source calls them commoditized legal AI skills.
Exactly. And those companies are effectively extinct as of this week. If you're a startup and your whole value proposition is, we use AI to review your NDA, and then Anthropic releases a free plugin that does exactly that, native in the interface, everyone is already using.
Yeah.
You're done. You have no product left.
But surely the big guys, Thomson Reuters, LexisNexis, they have defenses. They have huge proprietary databases of case law. They have the moat of data security.
Safe for now, as the sources say. You're right, a massive law firm isn't going to start uploading confidential client mergers to a public Claude plugin tomorrow. They need enterprise-grade security, they need audit trails, they need to know their data isn't being used to train the model. That's the moat.
But the moat is drying up.
The gap is closing fast. The source from AI Business had a quote from Michael McCready, a lawyer in Chicago. He said, this is not a matter of people fooling around with ChatGPT. This is actual agentic AI built specifically for law.
And that brings us to the human cost. Because if the tech is this good, if it can handle the playbook, the negotiation, the tone, what happens to the people who used to do that?
The sources really divide this into 2 groups, the experts and the novices.
Okay, let's start with the experts.
For the senior professionals, the partners, the general counsels, this is honestly great news. It removes the judgery. They can focus on high-value strategy, complex litigation, the really hard stuff. They become super-powered. They can do the work of 3 people because the AI is handling the paperwork.
But the novices, The entry-level associates. This is where it gets dark.
That's the entry-level threat. Michael Creedy was pretty blunt about this. He asked, why would clients who are paying by the hour want to pay a junior associate's hourly rate to do work that can be done through AI in seconds?
It's a valid question. Clients have hated paying for training time for decades. But here's the problem I see. If the AI does the mundane work instantly, where do the junior lawyers learn?
That is the paradox.
I mean, reviewing NDAs is boring. It's soul-crushing work. But that is how you learn what a bad clause looks like. That is how you learn the sneaky drafting we talked about earlier.
Right.
You learn by fixing broken contracts.
Exactly. It's the apprenticeship model. The legal profession, and frankly, many white-collar professions, is built on the idea that you do the grunt work to learn the ropes. If the robot does the grunt work, we are burning the bridge that the next generation is supposed to walk across.
So it's a crisis of training, not just employment.
And it shifts the entry point. You might not need a first-year associate anymore. You might need a fifth-year associate who already knows strategy. But you can't get a fifth-year associate if you never hired them as a first-year.
That is a problem the industry has not solved yet. And looking at the sources, there's a sense that this is just the beginning. The new reality, as one expert called it.
We're seeing the transition from AI as a tool to AI as a replacement for tasks. And eventually, if you replace enough tasks, you replace the role.
So we've gone from a software update to a technical deep dive into GitHub files to a stock market crash and finally to an existential crisis for the legal profession.
It's a lot to process for a Thursday.
It really is. And for you listening, I think this so what here is pretty clear. If you work in a field that relies on domain expertise, whether it's law, finance, coding, you need to realize that the moat is irrelevant. General AI is getting very specific very fast.
The ability to summarize a document is no longer a marketable skill. The ability to strategize based on that summary, that's what's left.
I want to leave you with a thought to mull over. We talked about how this AI can offer fallback positions. It can decide how to say no politely. It adjusts its tone based on whether it likes the other party.
It's mimicking emotional intelligence.
So if the AI can read the contract, find the risks, draft the changes, decide the negotiation strategy, and even police the polite tone of the email, at what point does the human in the loop stop being the safety net?
And start becoming the bottleneck.
Exactly. If the AI is faster, more accurate, and more emotionally balanced than the stressed-out lawyer, maybe the lawyer is just slowing things down.
That is a terrifying question.
Something to think about the next time you're reviewing a contract. Thanks for diving deep with us.
See you next time.